How's it going everyone? Welcome to a new video on the channel. So today I'm going to be showing all of you how you can start taking higher quality and more professional looking photos for your Instagram or social media using just your smartphone. Now this applies to any smartphone. It can be a Samsung, it can be an iPhone, a Google phone. It applies to all of them. As long as it's got a camera, you're sorted. The thing I love about photography is the fact that it gets you out of the house. You know, it brings people together and it starts to make you kind of look at the world around you in more detail. You start to appreciate it more, you start to notice more. So photography is definitely a great thing to get into. Okay guys, so being as the sun has gone in, I've had to adapt and I've had to find a new shot composure. So this is what I have. We have some telephone wires. I'll share my screen so you can see. We've got some telephone wires running down the middle of the frame, and then we've got some nice plants in the foreground, which is adding that depth that I was talking to you about, which gives the photos a bit more of an eye-catching look. When you've got just a flat image, it's nowhere near as interesting as when you have a depthy image. So we're combining some depth with some, let's say, symmetry of the wires, basically running from the top all the way down to the bottom. Now you want to make sure that you've enabled the grid in your camera settings on your iPhone, but on the iPhone you just go into your settings, scroll down to camera, click it and then enable grid. And this way that you can follow the rule of thirds. If you want me to do a video more in depth on the rule of thirds, let me know in the comments, where you can basically compose your picture to make sure that the subject's in the middle, and as you can see these lines are running through the middle up to the top of the grid, and that helps you take a nice photo. So if I line up this photo, we want to focus on the background. We can take a photo focusing on the telephone wires, and then we can take another photo focusing on the plants in front, so that if we decide we want a foreground focus, we can. And there are the two photos we need and want. So now let's head back and I'll jump into the process I take using VSCO, editing these photos and getting them out onto Instagram. So it got dark super quick and I got caught out just before I could get the sun, but as you just saw, we got the shot anyway, so let's head into how I get my photos edited. Okay, so here we are in the studio. As you can see, I've edited a few other photos on here before. A few of these, if you follow my Instagram, which is Jackson Congdon, if you follow that, you would have seen the top 6 photos here as I did recently post them. So I've decided to go with the picture I took where the focus was on the pylons in the background. Being as we are aiming to put this photo on Instagram, we'll just head into the little crop section and we will put a square on it. Now, this is where the rule of thirds comes into play. The foreground part of the image, we want to kind of keep in them bottom 3 squares, and making sure that the symmetrical lines that we are seeing in the photo run down the middle of the squares in the middle, so everything is kind of proportionalized in the correct places, therefore making the photo more pleasing to the eye. I wouldn't recommend putting the exposure up though, as I said before, the photo usually looks nice and balanced straight from the camera. The next we head into contrast. I usually tend to put this up just a little bit, as an iPhone camera usually tends to give quite a washed out image. If we just up the contrast by just a little bit, we can kind of get the idea that it just kind of gives the photo more definition. As I'm holding down here, you can see now it's before, and then after, you can just see there's just that little bit more detail. It's just a bit more eye-catching and bold. Next we can head into the sharpening tab. Now this is something I really like, especially when shooting on a phone, because it just helps, again, bring out all that detail in the image. So once you're happy with how sharp your image looks, some people like an aggressive sharpening look, whereas I prefer a bit more of a subtle but clean sharpen. We can head into the clarity feature. Now this feature is good, but I feel like it's too aggressive for, let's say, the kind of theme I'm going for, as I'm going for light summery colors. If we put the clarity up, you see it really brings out the detail and everything, and I don't really like the way that looks, but you guys can play about with that. And you can get some really nice looking photos out of that too. Saturation is something I don't play with too much, but in a time like when I shot this photo, it wasn't very colourful and sunny, so I usually tend to add a bit of saturation just to bring out some colours in the sky and in the grass, so that you can kind of get that summery colours still. Now highlights and shadows, again, this basically just raises the shadows. However, that is not what we need because we've already added the contrast, and that would kind of defeat what contrast is. Highlights is basically how you bring out detail in the sky. So when you raise them highlights, as you can see, the sky becomes kind of more detailed. You can see the clouds more as it reduces the white, but we'll just leave that how it is as it looked nice before. White balance, again, isn't really something you need to mess with because the cameras on phones deal with that quite well themselves. However, you can obviously change it if you want a warmer color, a colder color, depending on the mood. If you're a very stylistic photographer on your Instagram and you want very sad looking photos, then drop that temperature all the way down to blue, as that'll give that cold, sad feeling. If you're really summery and you want something really warm and dense looking, then turn that temperature all the way up, and yeah, you can get some really nice results. And then the tint is where you can basically give a little bit of hue to the photo if you again want to add some of your own personal style. Then we come into skin tone. This photo is not a portrait, so we won't go into that. Vignette, I don't use personally. I feel like it makes the photo look cheap, so I leave that, but again, you can play with that. Grain, I usually add a little bit of grain. When you look at it, it kind of looks like it's taken on an older camera, kind of gives the photo more style and more personality, so I tend to use that quite often. Fade, again, is basically you lose detail. It's more of a stylistic preference. Highlights, again, is what we've just spoken about. Borders is so you can add a border to your photo. If you have one of them feeds where you make it look like the photos are smaller than the squares, you can have a whole feed where if you do borders like this, it will look like the photos are all spaced apart, which is a really nice effect. But this is pretty much all I do for the natural filters and adjustments. So you can see I'm flicking back and forward. Not much has changed, but like I said, I add the filters later on. This just prepares the photo so it looks better with the filters. So now if we head back over to my favorites, I have 4 here because my feed follows certain colors, and all of these filters add them same colors depending on the situation I'm in. So for this photo, being as it's lots of greens, I will most likely be using 04, as that really kind of adds some depth to the greens and some nice depth to the blue as well. And as you can see, before and after, the photo just looks so much more rich, finished, edited, nice, and like it's been taken on a really great camera. And that's basically it. Okay guys, so that is it for me showing you how to take some really nice high quality photos on your phone. If you'd like to see more tutorials or you have any ideas of what you would like to see, whether that be editing, Photoshop, shooting with your camera, taking photos with your camera, shooting video with your phone, whatever you want, I'll most likely be able to help. So just drop it in the comments. Leave a like on this video also so I know that you found this helpful. Subscribe if you haven't already and turn those notifications on so you don't miss the next video. I hope that this video has helped you out, and I would really love for you to link some of your Instagrams in the comments so I can take a look at you applying some of these tips I've given you in your own photos, and I'll be sure to follow you and like your photos. I can't wait to see it. Alright guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all very soon.